Sponsored by Rabbi Shlomi and Mirla Greenwald. This is a Sicha from Likutei Sichos, Chelek Alef, Parshas Teruma Sicha Beis, and the topic of the Sicha is that in this week's Parsha we learn about the mitzvah to build the Beis Hamikdash, where it says Va'asu Likutei Sichos, and there are three parts in the Sicha. Number one, the Rebbe will present, question, and explain the opinions of the Rambam and the Ramban on this matter. So there's an argument over here between the Rambam and the Ramban. Number two, the Rebbe will connect it to the end of Masechtas Midas. And number three, the Rebbe will present a Heirah from this in Avodas Hashem. From the pasuk in our parsha of Asuli Mikdash V'Gemer, so the Rambam learns in Sefer Mitzvahs, Mitzvah Chaf, Shetzivanu Livnis Beis Habchira LaAveda, that Hashem commanded us to build the Beis Habchira, to do Aveda. Ba'yia Krava V'Avaras Eish Tamid, in it will be the bringing of Karbonos and the burning of the Eish Tamid. Ve'elav Tia Alicha Va'aliyah L'Regel Chulu, and to it will be the going and the Aliyah L'Regel. V'hu Omer Yis'aleh, and this is where Hashem says in our parsha, Va'asuli Mikdash. And the Rambam continues, this general thing includes in it many details. That they include the menorah, the shulchan, the mizbeach, and other parts. They are all parts of the mikdash. And all of them are called mikdash. And then he concludes, it was already specified, the command, by each one of these parts. What the Rambam is saying here is that even though they had separate commands, they're all part of this one mitzvah called the building of the Beis Hamikdash. They're all parts of the Mikdash, meaning that the Rambam holds that making the Klei HaMikdash isn't the mitzvah for itself, but rather it's a part of the mitzvah of building the Beis Hamikdash. In the Sefer HaMitzvahs on Mitzvah Lamed Gimel, the Ramban argues with what the Rambam says, and the Ramban says, it doesn't seem correct in my eyes, the reason that the Rambam wrote, that the Rambam says, that the Kelim are parts of the Mikdash. It's one mitzvah of the Mikdash, and the Kelim are just parts of it. And the Ramban explains, because the Kelim are not a part of the bottom. They're not part of the Beis Hamikdash. Aval, but rather, mitzvahs ma'ak. There are two separate mitzvahs, and one's not ma'ak of the other. And you could bring karbanos in the Beis Hamikdash, even though the Kelim aren't there, because they're two separate things. And therefore, by me, the Ramban says, the making of the Aron and the Kapiris, Losum Shama Eidus, to place in them the Eidus, the Luchis, Timone Mitzvah Bifnei Atzma, is counted as a separate mitzvah, because the Kelim and the Beis Hamikdash are two separate mitzvahs that are not ma'akiv one another. However, the Ramban agrees with the Rambam that the Shulchan, Mizbech, and Menorah are not each their own mitzvah. And he explains that the reason for this, that the Shulchan and Mizbech and Menorah aren't their own mitzvah, even though he doesn't consider them to be part of the Beis Hamikdash, they're their own thing. So he says, because we're commanded to place lechem, the lechem upon him in front of Hashem constantly. And Hashem commanded us how to do this mitzvah. That we should place them on a shulchan described in this way. So the reason is because it's not a mitzvah to make the shulchan. The mitzvah is to have the lechem upon him. And how does the lechem upon him have to be? Through being placed on the shulchan. So the shulchan is just a hechsher mitzvah. It's in order to do the mitzvah of having the lechem upon him there. And also, and Hashem arranged that the hadlaka that has to be done should be with a menorah shel zav, mishkala v'inyan akein v'kein, with a certain weight and certain other details. V'hinehem tashmish kedusha, and therefore they're tashmish kedusha. They're items that we use to do with them a mitzvah. The mitzvah of having bread in front of Hashem constantly. The mitzvah of lighting the menorah. And so the bottom line is they both agree that they're not counted as their own mitzvahs, but for different reasons. The Rambam says that they're not their own mitzvahs because they're part of the mitzvah of the Beis Hamikdash, and the Ramban disagrees. He says that their own thing. The only reason they're not their own mitzvah is because they're a hechsher mitzvah for the mitzvahs that are done with them. However, when it comes to the Aron, since it's not a hechsher for anything else, therefore the Ramban holds that there's a mitzvah to make the Aron. It's a separate mitzvah, and it's not included in the making of the Beis Hamikdash. So it comes out that we have a question on the Rambam. which is, according to the Rambam, why aren't the making of the Klei Hamikdash their own mitzvah? If they're not ma'akev one another, and you can have the Kalim without the Beis Hamikdash, and the Beis Hamikdash without the Kalim, that means they're two separate mitzvahs. So in order to answer this question, the Megillas Esther answers that even though Eina ma'akev zu, you can have one without the other, still they are two parts of one mitzvah, just like we have by Tchelis and Lovin in mitzvah tzitzis, that they're not ma'akev one another, as we know that a person can have Lovin without Chelis, and nevertheless, they are two parts of one mitzvah. So to here we can say that there are two parts of one mitzvah, and still you could have one without the other. However, as others point out, it's not similar, since as the Rambam writes in Shir Alef, that we don't say that two things that are not ma'akev one another are one mitzvah, unless we find clearly that they are one mitzvah, like by Tchelis and Lovin and mitzvah tzitzis. However, if we don't have a clear indication that they're one mitzvah, then what we're going to naturally say is that if one's not ma'akev the other, that means you could have one without the other, that means that they are two mitzvahs. As another possible answer, there's an opinion that says that the Rambam holds that the Beis and the Kalim are actually ma'akev zuazu. He disagrees with the Ramban. He says they are ma'akev one another because they're two parts of one mitzvah. And if you're missing either part, then you can't have the other part. And others say that the source of this argument is the argument of Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim in Masechta Shkalim, and the Rambam follows the opinion of Rabbi Meir. However, this too is difficult, because the Rambam is then following the minority opinion of Rabbi Meir, and not the majority opinion of the Chachamim, that they're not ma'akev one another. And also, the Rambam actually rules clearly, makrivin karbanos kulon afal pishe ein shom bayis banoi, that a person is able to bring all the karbanos, even though there's no house, there's no Beis Hamikdash. So clearly we see that eina ma'akev zuzu. And so we have our original question. If they're not ma'akev one another, then it seems like they are two separate mitzvahs. And if they are two separate mitzvahs, how come the Rambam doesn't count them as a separate mitzvah? Rather, he says they're part of the Beis Hamikdash. Besides for the difficulty on the opinion of the Rambam, there's also difficulty on the opinion of the Ramban, because in the beginning of our Parsha, the Ramban writes, Ikar HaChayfetz BeMishkan, the main objective of the Mishkan, who is Makim Menuchas HaShechina, that it's the place for the Menuchas HaShechina, Shehu Aron, which is the Aron, Kamesha Almar, like the Pasuk says about the Aron, V'ne'ati l'chosham v'dibarti itcho me'al HaKaparis, and he explains that Al Kain Hikdem Aron v'Kaparis Bekan, that's why the first Kli that's spoken about in Parshas Teruma is the Aron, ki hu mukdem v'mayla, because it's the highest, the most important of all of them. And if that's the case, so how does the Ramban write that making the Aron is a mitzvah for itself and it's not included in the building of the Beis Hamikdash if he holds that it's the Ikar HaChayfetz of it? This is the whole purpose of the Beis Hamikdash. It's the Makim Menuchas HaShechina Shehu Aron. So if the identity, the being of the Mishkan is that it's Makim Menuchas HaShechina and that is the Aron, then how could the Aron be a mitzvah for itself? So now we're going to move on to present another teaching, which, as we'll see, it's the source of this argument between the Rambam and the Ramban. So this will be understood by first explaining the Siyum Masechtas Midas. It says over there, Lishkas Agazis, so Sham Hoisa Sanhedrin Gdela She Yisrael Yesheves, V'dones HaKuhuna. There the Sanhedrin Gdela of the Yidden sat and judged the Kuhuna. V'kayin Shaloi Nimtza Ve'ipsul, and the kain that they didn't find any psul with him, so Leivish Levanim, or Misatif Levanim, he wore and wrapped himself with white garments, Nichnas Meshamish, Im Echav HaKainim, and he entered and served together with his fellow kohanim. V'yomtiv hayoisim shalei nimtza psul bezari shel Aaron HaKohen, and they made a yomtiv that no psul was found in bezari shel Aaron HaKohen. V'kach hayoimim, and they said two brachas. The first bracha was Baruch Hamakim Baruch Hu shalei nimtza psul bezari shel Aaron, that no psul was found bezari shel Aaron. And the second bracha was Ubaruch Hu shabachar ba'Aaron u'bebanav lamed l'sharis l'fnei Hashem bebeis kachei kedoshim, that Hashem chose Aaron and his sons to stand and serve before Hashem beveis kachei kedoshim. So the first bracha was that they didn't find the psul bezari shel Aaron HaKohen, and the second bracha was that Hashem chose Aaron and his sons that they should stand and serve in front of Hashem beveis kachei kedoshim. And there are two questions here. Number one, when we look at the two brachas, they should have first said the bracha that Hashem chose Aaron and his sons, and then only afterwards the bracha that no psul was found in them. First we have the choosing of Aaron and his sons, and then within those that were chosen, we're going to say that no psul was found in them. But first there has to be the choosing of Aaron and his sons to serve in front of Hashem, so that should be the first bracha. And the second question is, why does it say that they were chosen to stand and serve in front of Hashem, Beis Kodshei HaKadoshim? If this is the Avodah of the Kohen Gadol and only one time a year. The regular Avodah that was done by all Kohanim throughout the year was not in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. It was done throughout the Beis Hamikdash. So why does it say Beis Kodshei HaKadoshim? So the Marsha answers both questions by explaining that the first bracha of Baruch Hu Shelo Nimtza Psul is a bracha for the Kohen Hedjit, and the second bracha, Baruch Hu Shebacher Ba'aron Uvavanav, is for the Kohen Gadol. So that explains to us why this is the order, because first we make a bracha for a Kohen Hedjit and then for a Kohen Gadol. It also explains to us why in the second bracha we speak about the Kodesh HaKadoshim, because it's a bracha for the Kohen Gadol whose main avodah is in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. However, the difficulty with this is that besides for the question of why there's no bracha, the second bracha of Baruch Shabachar, why don't we make a bracha that Hashem chose also the Kohen Hedjit? There's the other question, which is, why isn't there a bracha that there's no psul for the Kohen Gadol? Which is even more important, since the Kohen Gadol is more prominent and more important, it should be a bigger deal that there's no psul there. So why is it that the first bracha, Baruch Hu Shelo Nimtza Psul, is only made for a Kohen Hedjit and not for a Kohen Gadol? And why is the second bracha, that the Kohanim are chosen, is only made for the Kohen Gadol and not for the Kohen Hedjit? Regarding the second question, there's an answer that based on Masechtas Kelim, where over there it describes different levels of Kedusha that there are, starting with saying that Eretz Yisrael is more holy than all other lands. So then we could say that Beis Kodshei HaKadoshim refers to the whole Beis Hamikdash, because relative to the other holy places that are lower than it, it's Kodesh HaKadoshim. However, the difficulty with this is that besides the fact that in Masechtas Kelim itself, when it talks about this, it only refers to the actual Kodesh HaKadoshim as the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Throughout Masechtas Midas, our Masechta, the words Kodesh HaKadoshim are used a number of times, and the term always refers to the actual Kodesh HaKadoshim. So it's difficult to say that over here, when it says Kodesh HaKadoshim, it refers to the entirety of the Beis Hamikdash. So now we're going to move on to explain the argument of the Rambam and the Ramban, and later we're going to show how it's really sourced in the Siyum of Masechtas Midas. So the explanation of all of this regarding the argument between the Rambam and the Ramban is as follows. The ideas and purpose of the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash are two general things. In the words of the Ramban, it's a bias mekudosh l'shmoi v'sham chulu yitzav es b'nei Yisrael chulu. It's simply a holy place for Hashem, and it's a place where Hashem talks to the Yidden through. And that's why the Ikar HaChayfetz, the main objective of the Mishkan, was the Aron, where Hashem spoke from. So what is this? It's a place for the Shekhinah to reside. As it's written in our Parsha, V'asu li mikdash v'shechanti b'seicham. And as it's written in Tehillim, Zois menuchasi adei ad poi eshev ki ivisiha. It's a place for Hashem to rest. And the main place where the Shekhinah resides is in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And this, as the Rebbe says in Ha'ara, is milmayla lamata. And then there's another inyan. There's another purpose in the Beis Hamikdash and the Mishkan. And that is milmata lamayla. That's the avodah that was done in them and the aliyah l'regel. And this is what the Rambam and the Ramban are arguing about. They're arguing which of these two is the main thing in the command of Hashem to build the Beis Hamikdash. And their argument regarding the command of making the Kelim in the Beis Hamikdash, whether, as the Rambam says, that it's included in the mitzvah of the Beis Hamikdash, or whether, as the Ramban says, that it's not included in the mitzvah of the Beis Hamikdash, that flows from this argument of theirs about what is the main thing. And now we're going to explain what each, the Rambam and the Ramban, hold as the main purpose and the main idea of the Beis Hamikdash and the Mishkan, and how, based on that, we're going to answer the questions on them. So the Rambam holds that the purpose of building the Beis Hamikdash is to be Makar Karbonis, which, when we say Makar Karbonis, it includes all the Avedis in the Beis Hamikdash. Like he says in Sefer Hayad, Mitzvahs Hasei, what's the Mitzvahs Hasei? La'aseis Bayis La Hashem to make a house for Hashem, muchan liyes makrivim by karbanis chulu, that is ready and available for the karbanis and the aveda to be done in it. Meaning that if it's not muchan liyes makrivim by, for the avedas to be done in it, then the mitzvah wasn't done. So part of the identity of being a Beis Hamikdash is, and the identity of being a Beis Hamikdash is that it's a bias la Hashem that's muchan liyes makrivim by karbanis. It's so it's understood that all the kelim are parts of the Beis Hamikdash. It's part of one mitzvah. That's what we asked about the Rambam. The Rambam said they're all part of the Beis Hamikdash. Of course they're part of the Beis Hamikdash, because the definition of the Beis Hamikdash is that it's a bayis l'Hashem, muchan liyis makrivim by karbanis. So the kelim are inseparable from the Beis Hamikdash, because it's through them that the Beis Hamikdash becomes muchan, a place where the avodah can be done. And regarding our question that if that's the case, and they're part of the Beis Hamikdash, so then how is it possible to bring karbanis without the Beis Hamikdash? They should be ma'akev one another if they're one mitzvah. So the explanation to that is that it's just that once the Beis Hamikdash is built in a way that it's muchan, then even after the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, karbanis may be still brought, since eina ma'akev zuzu, meaning that the Beis Hamikdash, the definition of the Beis Hamikdash is that it has to be a bayis l'Hashem that's muchan. It has to have all of the kelim in it. But that's something which is about the Beis Hamikdash. However, when it comes to the karbanis can be brought even without the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash's identity and definition is that it's a place where avodah can be done in it, and therefore all of the avodas are part of the Beis Hamikdash. But regarding the mitzvah of bringing karbanis, you can bring a carbon even if there's no Beis Hamikdash. And regarding the opinion of the Ramban, so the Ramban holds that the main intent and desire in the Mishkan and Beis Hamikdash is that it should be a place that's dedicated to Hashem, from where it can speak to Yidden. It's a place for the Shekhinah to reside. And so it comes out that the mitzvah of Asuli Mikdash v'Shechanti b'Seichem is only referring to the Mishkan and not the Kelim, because the definition of the Mishkan is it's a place for Hashem to reside, nothing to do with Avodah. So the Kelim are not included in it. And that's why they're not ma'akiv one another, because they're two separate things. And the reason there's no mitzvah, there's no command on the kelim, if they're separate from the Mishkan, is because they're only tashmishei kedusha. They're a hechsher for the avodah that was done on them. But really, they're a separate thing entirely, and there's just no mitzvah because they're tashmishei kedusha. Regarding the Aron, there is a mitzvah on the Aron, and therefore the making of the Aron is counted as its own mitzvah, since it's not a hechsher mitzvah for any avodah to be done with it. And even though we said it's the Ikar HaChefetz, the Ramban says it's the Ikar HaChefetz of the Beis Hamikdash, so why isn't it included in the mitzvah of Asuli Mikdash v'Shechanti b'Seichem? According to this, we understand, because the Beis Hamikdash is still a Beis Hamikdash without it. It's the Ikar HaChefetz of the Beis Hamikdash, but it's not what makes the Beis Hamikdash be a Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash, by definition, the definition of the Beis Hamikdash according to the Ramban is a place for the Shekhinah to reside. That means the Beis Hamikdash on its own, even without the Aron, is a place for the Shekhinah to reside. So if the Aron is going to add, like the Rebbe says in the Aron, a higher level of Kedusha, so it could be the Ikar HaChefetz, because the idea of the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash is a place for the Shekhinah to reside, and the Aron amplifies that further. So therefore, it's the Ikar HaChefetz, but it doesn't define the Beis Hamikdash. It doesn't make the Beis Hamikdash into a Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash is a Beis Hamikdash on its own, and therefore the Aron, since it's not part of the identity of the Beis Hamikdash, it's its own item, and it's not a hechsher mitzvah for something else. So therefore, there's a separate mitzvah for the Aron. And now we're going to explain the end of Masechtas Midas. So a number of prints of the C Masechtas Midas don't have the last bracha of Baruch Hu Shebacher Ba'aron U'Bebanov Lamed L'Sharis L'Fnei Hashem Bebeis Kachei Kedoshim. The second bracha is not there, and the conclusion is just with the first bracha. That's the only bracha. Baruch HaMakim Baruch Hu Shalei Nimsa Psul B'Zara Shel Aaron. The bracha that no psul was found in Zara Shel Aaron. And this seems to be the girsa, the version of the Rambam. And according to what we learned, we can explain how this is related to the argument of the Rambam and the Ramban. And we're going to start by first introducing something that the Rambam writes. The Rambam writes that the inyan of Masechtas Midas is Shu Zeicher Midas HaMikdash. It helps a person that he should remember the structure of the Beis Hamikdash, Vitzurasei, the form of Binyane and its building, V'chol and Yanav and all of its details, V'atayela sheyesh b'inyan ahu. And the benefit in this is Ki kishiyibana b'mheir v'yemenu, because when the Beis Hamikdash is built b'mheir v'yemenu, yesh lishmer v'latzis atavnes ahu v'chulu. We can now make the structure that was described and taught us. And so it's understood that at the very end of the Masechta, it explains what's the purpose of building the Beis Hamikdash. since that's what the Masechus is all about. It's all about the Beis Hamikdash. So at the end, we'll see what the purpose of building the Beis Hamikdash is. Now we're going to answer and explain why the end of the Masechta is the way it is according to the Rambam and the Ramban. And in the process, we'll also answer one of the questions that we had on Masechta Midas. However, after this, we're going to have one question on the Rambam, one question on the Ramban. And when we answer those questions, we'll also answer whatever remains unanswered on the end of Masechta Midas. So according to the Ramban, that the main intent of the Mishkan, what is the Mishkan? Not just the intent of it. What is the Mishkan? It's the place for Menuchas HaShechina. And the main place for this is in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So it's understood that all the Avodah is done in the Mishkan were for this purpose. And that's why this is the conclusion of Masechtas Midas. It ends with the words, Baruch Hu Shebachar Ba'aron U'Banov Lamed L'Shars L'Fnei Hashem, to serve him in general. But what's the purpose of all of it? Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim, for what happens in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, for the Menuchas HaShechina. So it doesn't mean the Avodah done in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. It means the Avodah done for what happens in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Menuchas HaShechina. However, according to the Rambam, that the main intent of the Beis Hamikdash is that it's a place to do the Avodah. It's a bayis la'Hashem muchon. It has to be ready for Avodah to happen in it. And the Lila Regel, which occurred all year round and in the entire Beis Hamikdash and not just in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So it doesn't make sense that they said a bracha that emphasizes the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And therefore, it doesn't the Rambam's print, the Rambam's girsa doesn't have the second bracha. Now, it's not explained in the Sicha, but l'chayra, it comes out that what does it say in the bracha? It says, Baruch HaMakim, Baruch Hu Shalenimsa Psul B'Zar Shel Aaron. And through that, they're able to do the Avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, which that is the definition of the Beis Hamikdash, a place for the Avodah to happen in. However, there's a question on the Rambam and a question on the Ramban. According to the Rambam, why didn't they make a bracha saying Baruch Hu Shebachar Ba'aron U'Banov Lamed L'Sharis, and then conclude with the words Beis Hamikdash? We're not going to say Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim, but give a bracha for the Avodah done in the Beis Hamikdash. And according to the Ramban, even though we explained how they could say Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim, because it refers to the Hamshachas HaShechina there, but still it fits better to say Baruch Hu Shebachar Ba'aron U'Banov Lamed L'Sharis, not in the Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim, but rather Beis Hamikdash, which includes the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And the reason this is better is because that's where most of the Avodah of Aaron U'Banov was done. So why didn't they say Lamed L'Sharis Beis Hamikdash? And the answer to these questions will also be understood based on the opinions of the Rambam and the Ramban regarding the Beis Hamikdash and the Kelim. That according to the Rambam, the Kelim are part of it being a bayis muchon, and according to the Ramban, they're a hechsher mitzvah for the avodas that were done with them. So a bracha, which that's what we're talking about over here, the brachas that the Kohanim made. So a bracha can only exist when the thing it's being made upon is special on its own, but not when it's just something which is needed because of something else, or it comes as a result of something else. A bracha is only made when the thing itself is important. So according to the Rambam, that the mitzvah of Asuli Mikdash is a mitzvah to say Lasis Bayis Lashem Muchan Liis Makrivim Baya Karbonas. So just like making the kelim doesn't count as its own mitzvah because they are part of building a bayis muchan, so too there's no place to make a bracha on the choosing of the kehanim, since it's only a necessary detail of making a bayis muchan. You can't have the avodas done without the kehanim, and you can't have a bayis muchan without the avodas. So they're all details, so you can't make a bracha on them. And so too, according to the Ramban, even though the kelim aren't part of the bayis, but still there's no individual mitzvah to make the kelim, since they are only a hechsher mitzvah for the avodas. And so too, there's no place to make a bracha on the choosing of the kehanim, since it's only a necessary detail of doing the avodah. So both according to the Rambam and according to the Ramban, the choosing of the kehanim, that's what the question was about. Why don't we have, according to the Rambam, a bracha of Baruch Hu Shebachar Ba'aron U'Banov, and also according to the Ramban, why don't we have a bracha on that? Because those are not the ikar inyan, they're just needed. You need kehanim in order to do the avodah on the kelim, which is needed in order to have a bayis muchan, according to the Rambam. And according to the Ramban, you did the kehanim in order to use the kelim, in order to do the avodah, So they're a hechsher for the Aveda to be done. You need the Kalim for the Aveda, you need the Gehanim for the Aveda. So you can't make a bracha on that. So according to the Rambam, we don't have that bracha at all. And according to the Ramban, that has most of the bracha, the conclusion has to be about what's the purpose of all of it. Beis Kachei HaKadoshim. It's to bring Hashem into the Mishkan, into the Beis Hamikdash, because that's directly related to the definition of the Beis Hamikdash. It's a place for Hashem, so that's why it's the end of Masechtas Midas. Now, according to the Ramban, regarding the main intent of the Mishkan to be a place for Menuchas HaShechina, so just like it doesn't depend on the Kalim, because you said that happens in the Beis Hamikdash on its own, it's unrelated to the Kalim. It also doesn't depend on the Kehanim doing the Aveda with the Kalim, but rather it happens with the building of the Mishkan. And the Rebbe mentions over here and talks about it in the Sicha that even if the first time it only happens with the Aveda in the Beis Hamikdash, but after that it happens with the building of the Mishkan by itself. So that's a separate thing the Rebbe talks about in the Sicha a little bit and in the Aris. However, since through the Aveda of the Kahanim, they also cause the Menuchas HaShechina in a greater way, so therefore we make a special bracha for this, which is the main purpose of the Mishkan. And now we can understand the order of the two brachas which we asked. Why first that no psul was found, and then that Hashem chose the Kahanim? First he chose the Kahanim, and then we could talk about that these Kahanim, that this Kahan over here didn't have a psul. So that's why the brachas are in this order. Because first they say a bracha for the ability to do Aveda in the Beis Hamikdash in general. When they say Shalenim is a psul, so now Aveda can be done. And that's what just happened. They actually had an incident where they didn't find the psul, so you make a bracha on that. And that comes right away, since now Aveda can be done. And then they say a bracha for this special thing that happens through their doing the Aveda, that they bring the Shekhinah into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So we were saying first you should talk about that Hashem was Bachar Ba'aron of Ivana. First they have to be chosen. That's not the point of that bracha. The point of that bracha is that they were chosen and now they could cause the Shekhinah to come and reside in the Mishkan. So that's the second thing. The first thing is that there's Aveda in general. And then secondly, that the Aveda has the ability to bring down the Shekhinah. And the Rebbe talks over there about how this wasn't done on Yom Kippur, because if it was done on Yom Kippur there would be a difficulty, and it was only done, it will only happen on the weekdays. And you have to look in the Sicha over there, you can see the explanation that the Rebbe has for why we have to say that this only happened on the weekdays. From here we have a Hira Nifla in the Avedas Torah mitzvahs in our times. Razal teach us that Tfilas connected to Midim Tikkunum. So our davening is similar to the Aved in the Beis Hamikdash, and even more so by Torah. It says that in the Shalmas Parshas Vaseinu that Kala Esik B'Teres Eila Ki'ilu Ikar V'Eila. So our davening, our tefillah, and our Torah are like the Aved in the Beis Hamikdash. So we have to know that in addition to accomplishing, besides the Allah Memata L'Mayla, that a person elevates himself, besides that, so in addition to accomplishing a Hamshacha L'Mayla L'Mata, that there should be a dir Elois Baruch V'Tachtenim. We're drawing down a lakus into the world. We're making a dir Elois Baruch V'Tachtenim, which is in the person himself and their surroundings. So in addition to that, the person also draws down the Ashras HaShechina in the place of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Like we see from the Ramban, that through the Aveda of the Kayanim in the Beis Hamikdash, besides what the Aveda accomplishes, it's Mamshech, the Shechina, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So too our Aveda in Torah and Tefillah, which is like the Aveda in Beis Hamikdash. So besides everything that it does, which is Allah Memata L'Mayla, lifts up the person, and Amshach L'Mayla L'Mata, to make a dear Lois Baruch B'Tachtenim within the person and their surroundings. In addition to that, the person is also Mamshech, the Shechina, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And this shows the great responsibility and the great Maila of the Aveda of each and every Yid, and the effect in the whole world, including that we bring close and we hasten the time that we'll be able to bring Karbanos in the third Beis Hamikdash, B'mheira V'Yameinu Mamish.